Come here, listen. It's getting more and more likely this game isn't going to go ahead at the weekend, and Tyrone and Kerry. I don't know if you heard what the Kerry side of it has been. Obviously, the issues are emanating from Tyrone. They had issues before the Ulster final, obviously, but it's not looking great now. Have you heard anything?
No, I was actually chatting to one or two of the lads just randomly over the last day or two, and they haven't a clue. So they're as much in the dark as all of us. So it's not ideal. It's obviously not ideal for Tyrone because they can't train. But I suppose from a Kerry point of view, you're trying to gear yourself up for next Sunday, and you just don't know what to do. I suppose everything, logistics side of it. Personally, if you're trying to get yourself ready for something, you don't know what you're doing. So I think at this stage, I'd rather it was called off. I just think when you get to this stage, an All-Ireland semi-final or final, you don't want to be missing any. But you don't want anybody to be missing these big games over COVID, over anything really. But from a Kerry point of view, you don't want to be playing an under-strength Tyrone team either.
No.
So I think the best thing would be to call off, but call it straight up, like as early as they can today, just so both teams can start preparing properly for it. And
then there's a week to the no break before the All-Ireland final, considering Dublin have the extra week. Is that an issue there, or I don't know, or is there enough?
Yeah, well, there's only an issue, I suppose, if you pick up knocks and bruises, I suppose,
or win.
They would have had I suppose there's no bothers if you lose, you have nothing to do anyway. But look, it is one of the knock-on effects. You put it back a week. Do you put the All-Ireland back a week? I think you'd have to. I think it's very tough on a team to play a semi-final, then a final. And no matter what happens, you're going to have an asterisk after somebody winning it then, because there'll be an excuse that we were down players because of COVID, or we had no break because of COVID. So, yeah, it's a strange one, but I think that they need to make a decision today, like very early, get it done. Ideally, from an outside point of view, I think it'd be the fairest thing would be to put it back a week and even put the All-Ireland back a week.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, well, we'll see what happens on that. There's not too much we can say on it, I suppose. If the match is to go ahead, I suppose we should talk about it. We'll obviously talk about Dublin Mayo, which there doesn't seem to be any doubts about, thank God. But the Kerry one thing I was talking to the lads about last week, and I said I'd mention it to you, is kind of the roads through and the paths. And we've talked about, is there the possibility of Kerry being undercooked in the past? But obviously if you're Tyrone and you've had COVID issues, you've had Cavan, Donegal, and a really brilliant Monaghan team, and Kerry had the biggest Munster final win, the second biggest Munster final win of all time, and big wins over Clare and Tip. We talked to Shane last week about A versus B games in hurling, and how famous they are and exactly what goes into them. And I was thinking, is Kerry actually having an extra week off? Is that kind of thing done in Kerry camps? Would there be like full on organised A versus B games that would be as competitive as you hear about with the Kilkenny hurlers and stuff?
Oh, there would, yeah. Like, to be fair, I imagine Dublin over the last couple of years, their toughest games have been the AVB games.
Yeah.
And I suppose Kerry do have a very strong panel at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if the B team were edging out the A team at times. So yeah, they would be. I don't think they're as famous as the Kilkenny ones we used to hear about, and there was no whistles blown or nothing. But no, it would be like that. You're at this stage of the year where every jersey is up for grabs, and your only opportunity to get in there, if you're not in there, is the AVB game. You can also play yourself off the team as well. So they'd be very competitive games like that. Kerry are definitely going in undercooked, and I suppose the only thing they have in their favour is that they had some good league games, and that wasn't that long ago. But if you had the same gap between league and championship, I'd be very worried about the Kerry lads, because realistically they've had no challenge at all this year. I don't expect it to be an issue coming up against Tyrone due to the league being so close. They know what's coming. I think the lads are tuned in. But other years I would be worried, because like that, their toughest games have been in training. So it'll be interesting, but I don't think it's going to be an issue this year.
Yeah. It was 6-15 to 1-14, I think. I might have that wrong, in the league down in Clarny, or was it Tralee? And you know, that was a Tyrone team. You're kind of thinking, Jesus, what's going on here? And I think they were experimenting a little bit at the time, and they were maybe going a little bit more attacking than you would used to for Tyrone. I feel like they found that balance now. Is there any sense, I suppose, it'd be more from Kerry fans now than I think Kerry management or team or anything like that, that'd be a bit of kind of a complacency over beating them by, you know, it's not even beating them so much as scoring 6 goals against a team like Tyrone. You'd be kind of thinking, geez, it'd be some third round for us to go out and lose an All-Ireland semi-final to them.
But that's the thing, yeah. I suppose, like, looking back in that game, I was watching. I think I tweeted actually what happened to the tough tackling Tyrone. That literally you didn't have time to scratch your head. Never mind get Akers' face be banging in goals. And they're obviously experimenting. Look, it's a new management team. They have a new way of playing, and like that, there was a bit of trial and error during the league. They are a lot more attacking this year. They've probably been the most entertaining team to watch in the championship as well. So far, they've played a better standard of opposition as well up to now, but the games have been very good in Ulster in general. I couldn't see them being that attacking against Kerry. I don't think they'll go back to their old style, but I definitely think they'll be a bit more cautious. But I also think Kerry will be a bit cautious. They conceded 114 in Killarney, and it could have been more. Tyrone forwards have shown this year how dangerous they are. They're a lot more direct, giving in the ball to them. They actually look happier this year with the style of play. So I think Kerry will be a bit cautious as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kerry. I don't think they'll go with the 2 defensive wing forwards like they did last year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a more defensive half forward, either a 10 or 12.
But either way, both of them are going to have to do a lot of tracking against the way Tyrone are playing at the moment, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. Like, and Tyrone definitely have the balance at the moment. McGeary there and Conor Myler.
Yeah,
they kind of go unnoticed a bit at a time, but the work they do off the ball, and even the small little things around the middle, being that the link men, just picking up runners. So they definitely have that balance. Scott, obviously, that's probably down to playing better opposition in the Ulster Championship. They had to be ready to go. Kerry haven't had that same issue just yet. So I think that's the interesting thing for me. I think Tyrone will have periods in the game where they will go ultra defensive just to frustrate Kerry, see can they cope. So it's going to be interesting. Like my thing as well is with Kerry, I think Tyrone have bigger, stronger, more physical forwards than Kerry have backs. So it'll be interesting to see who picks up who, because if you have Conor McKenna and you have Matty Donnelly in the full forward line, Kerry's full back line wouldn't be the most physical. Tom Sullivan and Brian are very tenacious. Jason Foley has a bit of height, but they wouldn't be the strongest trio.
Yeah, so McShane's time to unleash him, really, isn't it? Like we've been waiting for him.
And he's a fella I forgot to mention there, that if you throw him in, that's a very, very strong full forward line there as well. Obviously, McCurry be maybe a bit different, but
I don't know. But I mean, it doesn't seem like they've done it. I don't know. Is this the time to do it? Like he's getting a little bit more game time all the time, but like, is if he only has 45 minutes in his legs, you throw him out at the start, don't you, and try and disrupt the game and try and be in it for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, I suppose that's the tough call. Like, he has been coming on and doing well, and I've been that sub that's come on to finish off games as much as I hated it. And more often than not, management will rather bring you on for 25 minutes than play you for 45 and 50 minutes and take you off realistically when they need you in the game, the last 20 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they left him on the bench. He had a big impact. There'll be 24,000, I think, at the game. You'll get a big reaction off the Tyrone supporters at the game. He'll give the players a lift coming off the bench. So if he can't last the 70 minutes, I'd be leaving him in reserve.
Yeah. Okay. I know, I see where you're coming from. I just think maybe it's like that's the way you should do it most of the time, but the odd time maybe there's a switch up because of the opposition, and maybe it's getting into them early is actually what's going to happen. As you've seen, like Waterford tried that with Limerick and it didn't work either. So
well, my argument as a player was always throw me on for 50 minutes, have the game won, and I'll come off with 20. I get a couple of goals. That was my argument. But it was management are a bit more cautious, because if it's not going well or he's slow to get into it, you're going, you should have left him off to start in 15, and you're guaranteed an impact when he's coming on. But I suppose that'll be the big decision the management have. As well, the Tyrone forwards have been playing really well.
Yeah.
So who do you leave out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a fair point. So that's possibly an issue for Kerry, is maybe the physicality of the Tyrone forward, especially the full forward line versus what Kerry have there. Is there anything else that you would be worried about? And I ask all of this because I think we both think that Kerry are favourites and are going to win the game. So it's like it's not focusing on it's more to see what might make this more of a game than possibly we think it's going to be.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be a game no matter what. I think Tyrone are really in a good spot at the moment, and they're still in that kind of developmental stage with the new management. They're still trying to find their feet with this new system. But if there's one team that can come out and disrupt and break a rhythm, it's Tyrone. In the All-Ireland finals I would have played against them, I always felt we were the better team. Always going into it, and even coming out of it when we lost, I felt we were the better team. But they are just better at finding a way to disrupt, and they'll disrupt Kerry as much as they can, but they also have the players who are brilliant on the ball. We've seen that this year, how attack-minded they've been, how free they look up in the forwards, how direct they've been with ball. I think Sean Kavanagh mentioned it in RT the last day, that he'd never seen them kicking as much ball, like ball into space. They have pace, they have power, they have skill. So like, you're going into Tyrone thinking, what way will they play it? But they're going to have two styles that will be kind of intertwined, a disruption style and then a free-flowing football style. And I think they have the players, they have the balance at the moment to do that. It'll be how Kerry cope with it. They haven't come up against it yet this year. And then it'll be a real test of maturity with the lads, with the Kerry boys. I thought they showed maturity against Cork when they started poorly and regrouped. I think that small bit of experience from that 15 minutes alone will stand to them that it's about patience. It's 70 odd, probably 80 minutes this game. You just need to keep the scoreboard ticking over, even if it's winning a free. If you haven't scored for 4 or 5 minutes, you get into that zone, you win a free, you engineer a free, do you know? And I think that's something they would have learned from last year. Obviously, when they got beaten by Cork, they had opportunities to get the scoreboard to keep tipping over. They never did it. And even the first 15 minutes this year against Cork, they were going for goals and they weren't done. Just put it over the bar. And I think they'll learn from that.
Yeah. Okay. What about the other game then? Dublin, like, I'm trying to phrase this right because I'm in no way writing off Dublin. And if I was probably to pick a team to win the All-Ireland, I'd probably still pick them. But I've talked myself into there being chinks in the armor, or there being, you know, a possibility of them being hit for probably the last 4 years. And it's never been realistic. And it's actually been probably getting less realistic for the last, well, definitely last year anyway, right? But this time, I think I really believe it. You know, it's like, and I think that the reason is just, I was just looking even at the, you know, how different these teams are from when they would have met in 16 and 17. But that Mayo are actually the team that are bringing through the guys that we're excited about, more so really than Dublin. You look at their bench; they always had guys that were hanging around for a long time. You knew that eventually. Owen Merchant, right? How long is he knocking around the panel? And then he comes on and he's a superstar, you know? But it's like looking at their bench the last day, other than Merchant, who was injured, obviously, you're not sure about any of them. Now, maybe they could be great, but we don't know the way we used to. And I think that's a key thing considering how many players they've lost.
Yeah, and I think you probably hit the nail on the head with the way you phrased it. They could be great, but we don't know that yet. And you just don't replace the players Dublin replaced. And it just flows, that one replace the other. You don't replace the quality that they've lost. No, they may go on to be great players and emulate the fellas that they've replaced, but at the moment, they're not as good. It's as simple as that. And in time, they might be, but at the moment, they're not. So Dublin, for me, I think saying they're on the wane or they're on a downward slope, it's the wrong thing to say, but they're definitely not at the level they were. For me, Mayo have been very exciting this year. Similar to Kerry, they haven't played much. I thought Galway were very poor in the Connacht Championship. But they have that same style, which is so hard to play against, which is tenacious, fast-paced, all energy. I used to always describe it as kamikaze football. They're just running from everywhere. Only the players that they've lost, who were great servants but were slowing down, they've been replaced with fellas with unbelievable energy, great pace. And we've seen this year, like defenders have been asked to defend a lot one-on-one. And now Mayo seem to have the forwards with a bit of pace that can go at you and cause you trouble. And they probably don't have the same battle scars from losing to Dublin and other All-Ireland semi-final and final. So they're going in with probably a bit of a bounce, no fear, young lads. And then you have someone like Aidan Shea, who they've been using a lot better recently. So it's foolish to write off Dublin, and no one in the right mind anyway, because they're doing what they have to do. They're getting through. If they can win games in second gear, win them in second gear, and that's just the quality that they have. But similar to Kerry, can you just switch it on if you haven't been doing it before that?
Yeah. Can I ask you, as a group, how important scars and stuff are? Because we were talking about the Kerry Tyrone matches years ago there a few minutes ago, and we're talking about Mayo lads that might have something in their head about all those games against Dublin. And I know that there'll be so much discussion about not having those scars in groups and stuff like that, but also a player will inherently feel it, especially after a result. Did you guys have, like, maybe, I don't know whether the qualifier win a couple, 2011 or 12 maybe ended it all or not, but was there a kind of a feeling with Tyrone for the Kerry group that there's something about them that we just can't get over? Is there probably a feeling with Mayo in the similar way that there's something about Dublin? Don't forget they've lost them the last 2 years as well as the 2 All-Ireland finals and various semi-finals and so on and so forth.
Yeah, look, I think if you're a player and you're going, no, it's gone, it's done, that's lies. Like, realistically, you may think it is, and you'll say all the things. No, I don't. You don't fear them, but there's always something in the back of your mind. You're not going to forget them defeats, and there was obviously something that Tyrone had over us. Now, I would have always gone in thinking we can beat them, but the difference there was, like, very similar players were playing in all them games as well. So, like, it's in your head. You can say it as much as you want. You're bound to start thinking, oh, not again. And I don't know how you get over that. You get over it by beating them. But the team that we beat in the qualifiers were a very different Tyrone team to the team that were beating us. Do you know, they hadn't won an All-Ireland in a number of years. They weren't all conquering. So yeah, it definitely leaves battle scars, and it's very hard to get over that. But I suppose it always comes down to the stretch, the last couple of minutes of a game, how your position is, and then it's a case of, are we in this position again? Like, it all depends on the individual as well, but they definitely would leave scars. You go into it going, geez, we can't get beaten by these again. Like, I lost a minor to Tyrone in 4, senior to 5, and to them in 5 and an 8.
Yeah.
And I love playing against them. That's the weird thing. I loved playing against Tyrone. I always felt individually that I do well. I always felt that their defenders didn't like me, which made my day. I always got a bit of grief off the Tyrone fans when I was coming on, and I loved it. But I had no joy against them as a group. Like, we used to lose all the bigger games, which even to this day, I couldn't put my finger on why. I'd always say, oh, geez, we had a better team than them. But they find a way of stopping you playing, and obviously they had great players as well at the time. So for me, they're probably the best at getting that balance of disrupting you and playing their own game.
This is off track for today, and I wasn't even going to go there, but is the 08 one then the hardest because of, I don't know, I suppose even from a Kerry man, even necessarily than your own kind of individual thing, is because it already happened twice at that stage, and there was no way you were going to get caught that time, and you'd double All-Ireland champions.
Yeah.
In the following year with you as captain, that's a 4 in a row team right there. Like, you know, you don't know.
That's the thing. Like, I suppose like 2004 mine or whatever, 2005 it was my first year with the seniors. I actually made my debut the same day. So, and I just felt, oh, I'll be back again. You know, I was young. I wanted to get over it. 8 for me would be one that sticks in the mind. From a personal point of view, I thought I should have started the game. I'd done really well coming off the bench in the lead up. I thought they're going to start me here. I do well against Tyrone. I'd done well against them in all the games that come on. I'd done well in the league games. And I just felt, oh, they won't like me. Do you know, they won't like me. I have pace, and I used to go at fellas. But obviously it didn't start anyway, and did okay when I came on. But it definitely would have stuck stuck with me. Like obviously we'd lost in 5, we'd won in 6 and 7, we won in 9. Like you said, that's a 4 or 5 in a row. And that was my thing always with Tyrone, is like kind of going, even if we win or lose, we were always back the next year. And Tyrone would not take a year off, but they'd go into the background a bit the following year. And I was there going, that was the difference between us and them. Like we were consistently there. But they had a way of winning the big game, especially against us. And I heard, like Mayo on about it recently as well, that they were coming into the game against us, probably feeling, geez, there's no difference between us and them, only they have history. But history doesn't win you any games. But it doesn't win you games, but it can lose you games if it's in the back of your mind. But they came in with this attitude, you know what, they don't get tackled hard, so we'll flake into them. And I think he said in his interview like that, they got in at halftime, like, hold on a second, this is working. So it's only small moments like that. All of a sudden you're going, well, they don't like this. And they keep going. And then all of a sudden it's like you're anticipating it, and all of a sudden you're going in with a negative mindset.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And geez, I'd love to talk to you all day about it, but I want to get back to Mayo. Funny enough, Mayo, it would be in the middle of all that story as well, because they'd be the ones who'd be unfairly criticised as the soft All-Ireland finals for you guys and stuff like that during that time when Tyrone didn't show up, as you would point out yourself.
Yeah.
But they were there and they won brilliant games to get there, but maybe didn't have the best finals. But it wasn't the same Mayo that we've seen for the last decade or so. And it's actually interesting. I've been thinking a bit about this week, because they are regenerating again, and because you're only talking about Aidan O'Shea, you're only talking about Keegan, you're only talking about, I'm definitely missing a few. Paddy Durkin's been there a long time, Henley's been there a long time. There's one more, Dermot O'Connor, right? But other than that, new team, like, and it's kind of happened quietly, and they're there and contenders again. And when you think that in 2011, I think, did you beat them in the semi-final that year? They'd beaten Cork in the quarter-final, and they've basically been in every semi-final but one since then. And you think of that consistency for a county like Mayo, who would have been up and down for a long time over their entire history, really. Football mad, obviously, but maybe not the, the infrastructure there to be a consistent player. But you kind of think of Mayo now as that they're nearly always going to be there, aren't they? They're always going to be in the top 4 or 5.
Yeah, they're at the top table for a long time, and they will, like, they're a great team. They just couldn't get over that final hurdle for whatever reason. Look, like a lot of us, we've come up against Dublin in a purple patch. You throw that Mayo team that lost quite a lot of finals, semi-finals, back 10 years or forward 10 years, they'd probably have a couple of medals in their pocket. But
yeah,
that sport, sometimes you come up against team like a lot of teams at the moment in the hurling with Limerick. They just look incredible. So you could be a great player or a great team, but you're coming up against a very, very special group. And I think that's what I was about with a lot of these Mayo boys. They came up against a very special Dublin team. But yeah, they, like, the one thing for me, especially this year, like they've evolved an awful lot. The change is in the team are huge, but they've done it quietly, which is a bit unusual for Mayo. You're normally hearing Mayo for Sam from December, January, all the way through. Somehow they've managed to keep it quiet for a while, and if they keep it quiet, maybe, who knows, it might actually be Mayo for Sam. I do have a sneaky feeling for him. Can't shake it with the last couple of weeks. There's something different about him this year. They've great energy. So, and like that, these younger lads, fresher lads, like we talked about earlier, the battle scars, they don't have that baggage going into it.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're going into it with very little pressure, because realistically, who's expecting them to win it? Nobody. Because they don't have a history of winning it. They have a history of losing big games to Kerry and Dublin. Maybe not against Tyrone, but there's no pressure on them.
Yeah.
Go play Dublin. This is the greatest team of all time. You've no pressure. This is a new Mayo team. So they're going in under the radar, probably underappreciated, undervalued. So young lads with a bit of freedom into Croke Park, where everyone wants to play. Maybe not the same pressure either without the full house. So yeah, I don't know. I can't shake it. And someone would be trying to, I'll explain how my cousin rang me from Santa Barbara, because he heard that I tipped Mayo. He wanted to know, was I feeling okay? And I was trying to explain to him. I said, I can't explain it. I just can't shake this feeling for Mayo this year.
Right. Okay. And that's for the All-Ireland rather than just Saturday, or
yeah. I think if I do. I just have a funny feeling for them. I think they could do it. Yeah. No, this could come back and bite me badly.
Yeah. But that's fascinating. But I was even going to say this week, I don't know if many Dubs would even begrudge come the final whistle, obviously not during it, but after losing in 2013 All-Ireland final, 2015 semi-final, 2016 final, 2017 final, 2019 semi-final, and 2020 final, they have to win one of them. And it becomes the saga gets more and more every year, and eventually you have to stop adding chapters if there isn't going to be a change of storyline.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, when you name it out there, they've been there so often. I don't think anyone would begrudge them. To be great not to have to listen to Mayo for Sam as well, like every year. But I have a cousin down here, and he's cousins with Aidan Shea on the other side. So I think he's a record at the moment that he's had one cousin in the All-Ireland final consistently for, I don't know how many years it is now, but between myself, Aidan and Shamey, he's always got someone in the All-Ireland final. So you never know, it might continue again this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see, because that's the big one now. If Mayo can overcome Dublin, and it's going to be and Kerry do overcome Tyrone, whenever that game might happen. There's a lot to talk about come that. But I think actually it's funny that we have kind of come down to the four. I think if you were looking at, you might have wanted Galway individually to win that match. You definitely, I think there was an awful lot of people would have loved Monaghan to beat Tyrone, especially given everything that's happening, plus just a lot of other things. But when it comes down to it, four that are left is the championship four, really, isn't it? And like taking all the provincials out of it, this is where it gets really exciting.
Well, that's the thing. Like last year was brilliant. You had Tipperary won Munster, you had Cavan win Ulster, but then you got to an All-Ireland semi-final, and they were out of their depth. As simple as that. Whereas now we have, take the provincial, forget about provincial. You have your four best teams in Ireland. 2 games. Who's going to be the champion? And that's what it's down to. You're guaranteed to have 2 very good games because they're the 4 best teams, and they have been consistently for a number of years.
Yeah.
I think Dublin still top dogs. I think Kerry and Mayo, Tyrone, you throw in a Donegal or a Monaghan with them, they're a tier below. Can one of them join Dublin up there this year? That's been the question from the start of the year. So, like, for me, it's great because you're guaranteed 2 games.
And you're calling the Mayo Kerry final then?
Mayo Kerry final. You heard it here first.
I love it. As so many people have said that Mayo will, they'll finally beat Dublin and they'll have another match to go, and that'll be that. Now,
we could be chatting next week, and Dublin could be after hitting them for 15 points, and I will look very foolish. But it won't be the first time I look foolish. But no, I just like that. I can't explain it. I think a lot of people are probably thinking the same.
Brave to tip against a 7 in a row team, but you're going to be right sometime.
Won't be right.
Darran, thanks a million. We'll chat to you after the semi-finals next Monday. Hopefully semi-finals. Look, it's looking more and more likely it is one semi-final, but there'll be a lot to talk about with Dublin and Mayo, as there always is anyway. So we'll chat to you then. Thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers, mate. Talk to you later.
Thanks a million to Darran. Thanks a million to Shane as well. If you are watching on YouTube and you've enjoyed the show, please do subscribe to the channel. You'll be able to get our show every week in your feed on a Monday. We will be also back with you next week, where we will look back on that Dublin Mayo game and lots more. Keep an eye on Balls.ie all week for more GAA Embedded content. We'll have lots to go there as well. So please subscribe. Take it easy. Have a good week. Enjoy watching back all the games from the weekend. See ya.